People are ignoring their constitutional obligation, and we need to step up, hold our individual office holders accountable. Your city clerk, your county clerks, your county commissioners, your city council members, your school board representatives, your principals, your public school teachers. Any government employee has the duty to uphold the Constitution. Every single government officer has the duty to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions. I don't care how small of an office it may seem. I don't care how big it is. There's no exceptions. Every one of them has a duty to uphold the state and federal constitutions. So we need, as a people, to hold them accountable and remind them of that. No more excuses. Our state reps have been nothing but excuses from day one on.
Welcome to Freedom Fridays, where you have the freedom to speak freely. Happy to introduce our guest this morning, constitutional attorney Katherine Henry. The phone lines will be open this morning, and I think you're going to want to call. Now, I have told Katherine in the past, our guests, our listeners are often so polite that our guests are just, talking to themselves, but we do want to encourage you today to give us a call, 482-1330, 482-1331. And without further ado, good morning to Katherine Henry.
Good morning.
Hi, thanks for joining us. How's the weather where you are, by the way?
Do you really want to hate me? Because it's a little bit better than where you're at right now.
I know. It is so. This was a shock. I mean, I know they say it's going to snow, but there's always a part of me that thinks, no, it's not going to be like that. And I was shocked when I woke up this morning. A literal snowbank on the hood of my car. So,
well, if it makes you feel any better, I still listen to my radio station from West Michigan, and I think it was just a few days ago that the radio show host, when she went in at like 4 or 5 in the morning, it was a blizzard.
Oh, gosh.
On her way into work. So.
I have a wicked sense of humor, Katherine. That does make me happy. At least there's that dark side, Well, I'm glad it's warm, I'm sure, where you are, and yeah. For that I'm happy. So I'm glad you're getting to enjoy that. I always love having you join us for this program, and MCL 333.2253. Why don't you explain to our listeners what that is? And again, listeners, please do call Katherine. We only have until 9 o'clock. Use the time wisely. Katherine, go ahead.
All right, everybody. So if you're listening to this, you most likely were in Michigan throughout the last 2 years, and we had a lot of executive orders, and then they turned into administrative or emergency orders. So basically what happened is the first part of COVID, Governor Whitmer was issuing EOs that were executive orders under 2 different statutes. And through a couple different cases, they were eventually brought into the Michigan Supreme Court and were argued on September 9th, 2020. I was blessed enough to be able to participate in that argument, of course arguing for the people and against her use of those executive orders. So the Supreme Court on October 2nd came out and said that that she had violated the 1976 Emergency Management Act, but that they only declared the 1945 Emergency Powers of Governor Act unconstitutional, literally saying in a footnote, well, because we said she violated the 1976 statute, we don't really have to answer whether the statute itself is unconstitutional. So, at any rate, it is. I don't care what the court says. And but that left all of her executive orders under those 2 statutes null and void. So she immediately told the court that she wanted an extension of time, but she also told them straight up that she was going to start, and she told the public, she was going to start using the Public Health Code through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, MDHHS. She was going to start using MCL 333.2253, where that statute tries to give the MDHHS director the authority to issue EOs that are emergency orders that can do one of three things, and essentially she was going to try to use those to do literally exactly the same restrictions and rules and regulations that she did through those other EOs. So the two statutes that are involved are 333.2253, which is for the state health department to make those orders, and 333.2453, which is for the local health departments to issue those orders. Those statutes are supposedly allowed to do one of three things. One, they claim that the orders are allowed to prohibit the gathering of people for any purpose. That is obviously entirely unconstitutional, because no statute is allowed to take away those rights that are guaranteed to be protected in our U.S. or Michigan constitutions, and lucky for us, both those constitutions require us to have that right to peacefully assemble. The second thing that these statutes supposedly allow these health departments to do is to ensure the continuation of essential public health services. Now, all the restrictions and things that they have jam-packed into these orders since October of 2020 is not a continuation of any kind of service, let alone, it's not even offering services. Services is something, it's a real word. It's not something that's just some scary legal limbo that people can't understand. No, everybody would probably realize that if, somebody came up and, depending on the season, but once it's July in the UP, and somebody comes up with a lawn mowing, business truck, and, they come out and they're like, okay, I'm going to start mowing your lawn, you have the right to say, you know what, I appreciate the offer, but I don't need your services, thank you. You could try one of the other neighbors. And so you have the right to accept or reject the service being offered. Well, that's what a service is. It's something that is offered, or somebody is offering to do or provide something for you. So if they, the public health department is, wanting to offer to continue, I don't know, if they're doing cancer screenings, or if they're doing, maybe they want to offer COVID testing, or they want to offer, flu vaccines, or something of that nature. It's an offering, but there's no way that something can be mandated when it's merely a service. But the third thing that this statute allows the health department to do is literally just to enforce current health laws. Well, of course, the things that they were doing were essentially creating new restrictions and new laws by the use of these EOs, which is totally unconstitutional. But at any rate, that's the statutes that the governor has then been using through the MDHHS director to regulate people and which businesses could be open, and if you have a restaurant or really any business, what capacity you were supposedly allowed to be open to, 25% capacity or 50 or whatever, whether we were allowed to have indoor gatherings in our homes or other places, outdoor gatherings, how many people could be there, those kinds of things. Of course, in the early days of the EOs, before the Supreme Court got involved, we were told we couldn't even buy paint or, seeds or, anything to fix up our house, things like that. So essentially what happened is, there's been a number of challenges in different courts to all that's been happening with these COVID restrictions. And there's a restaurant called the Iron Pig. I believe it's at Seago County. And they were fined, I want to say it was November or December of 2020. They were fined, I believe it was $5,000 for having the restaurant open in supposed defiance of these EOs. And so they challenged it, and the administrative law judge at the beginning said, oh, no, you're good to go, you have to pay this. Well, they decided to keep fighting, and they brought it to the 46th Circuit Court, and the judge decided, I believe it was January 15th of this year, the judge decided that this was not allowable because this statute was unconstitutional, and used the precedent that was set by that case that I was blessed to be able to argue in, that struck down that 1945 statute. And it's for essentially the same reason that we have separation of powers. Everybody learns about it in elementary school and middle school and high school. What's interesting, though, is that the court, the Michigan Supreme Court, said that, they basically have to follow the jurisprudence or the case precedent set by the U.S. Supreme Court on this topic. But there is an important difference between the U.S. Constitution and the Michigan Constitution, and that is that Article 3, Section 2 of the Michigan Constitution literally is entitled Separation of Powers. And then it proceeds to use one sentence to describe that anyone in one branch of government is never allowed to exercise the powers that belong to another branch of government unless it specifically allows them to in the state constitution. There's some rare circumstances that really don't affect the people. It's just more administration of how government is functioning. It's not just a doctrine, as they called it, as the Michigan Supreme Court referred to it. It's not a doctrine. It's not some philosophy. It's literally the words of the Constitution. So I don't know why they think they have to complicate it by looking at all this case law, as they call it. It says you can't do it. So if the governor is not allowed to exercise, or the MDHHS director, or anybody else in the executive branch, if they're not allowed to exercise the powers that would belong to the legislative branch to make new laws or modify laws, which only the legislative branch can do, then whatever they're doing in trying to exercise those powers is void. Now, unfortunately, that's the only argument that the courts have really focused on. They've kind of touched on some other individual liberty issues, but really what they should have done as well is say, okay, you're violating not just that part of our constitutions, you're violating so many other aspects of our Constitution that every government official is bound by. Now, let's remember, it's not just fines for businesses that we were looking at when supposedly defying these EOs. I'm looking at one that was signed by Robert Gordon, the then acting director of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, from October 29th, 2020. And it says that violation of this order is a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment of not more than 6 months, or a fine of not more than $200, or both. And then on top of that, some other civil penalties, up to $1,000 for each violation or each day that a violation continues. So double financial penalties, as well as literally being thrown in jail for 6 months. And so, this is definitely a deprivation of life, liberty, or property that we're dealing with there. So if you're still listening and you're wondering, why on earth are you talking about this right now? Well, it's because when the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services lost in January, they did a couple of things. One is they decided they wanted to appeal, and the second is that they asked the trial court and the circuit court judge to put pause, to issue a stay on the order that basically declared all of the remaining EOs invalid. And the judge, I want to say it was maybe February 22nd, but it was in February anyway. The judge came back and said, no, I'm not going to issue a stay. I'm not going to push pause on this because what you did was unconstitutional and it needs to be stopped. So that was great. Well, MDHHS decided to keep pursuing this. They filed an appeal in the Court of Appeals, but then they also filed paperwork in the Michigan Supreme Court, and they said, hey, listen, Supreme Court, don't make us wait and do this whole thing that could take up to years in the Michigan Court of Appeals. Let us jump over, let us bypass the Michigan Court of Appeals and head straight to the Michigan Supreme Court because this issue is very important and we need to get finality. And the interesting thing is, I think that I'm not even sure anybody opposed that motion, quite frankly. I think everybody was agreeing. I could be wrong about that. But there were some amicus briefs that were filed, and then even looking at the justices on different sides, it didn't matter what political side of the fence they were on. That didn't seem to be the dividing factor on whether they were going to take the case right away. But unfortunately, a week ago, it's like an April Fool's joke. The Michigan Supreme Court came back and said, you don't really need to know what we think your rights are and how government should really act. You got to wait in due course and let the whole thing go through the Court of Appeals. Like, it was literally, I think, a 2-sentence order. Justice Bernstein, who's usually on the left, and Justice Viviano, who's usually on the right, they joined in a dissent together and basically, came out and said, hey, this these kind of orders have impacted the lives of the 10 million people in Michigan for years, and they can't just continue to linger out there and have people questioning what their rights are. We need to clarify this, and we need to do so swiftly and with finality. And so they would probably come to different conclusions on what the answer to that is, but they both agreed that the issue needed to be handled. So, at any rate, it's a very important case. The case is now back in the Michigan Court of Appeals. I haven't checked in maybe 2 days, so I probably should check. But the last time I checked, there wasn't really much happening. In fact, what I found interesting is that in the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, the plaintiff's attorney actually never filed a thing, never filed one response. Excuse me. But in the Supreme Court, I believe there were 2 amicus briefs, the Michigan Legislature and the Mackinac Center based out of Midland, Michigan. And so they kind of joined the fight as, a friend of the court, so to speak, with these amicus briefs, which is how I was participating in 2020 in the cases that were in front of the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court. But in the Court of Appeals, the last I saw, as of, a day or 2 ago, you had the initial brief that was filed, I think that was March 2nd. No, excuse me, that was February 2nd. It was filed in the Court of Appeals, and the plaintiff's answer was due later in February. And not a single brief was filed in response, not by an amicus, not by the plaintiff. And so I'm kind of left going, oh my goodness. So here's a reason to have people call in. I've asked people, I talked about these cases in my Restore Freedom Weekly episode this past Tuesday, and I asked people to weigh in on whether I should get involved. Quite frankly, I'm exhausted. I'm mentally and physically exhausted. We're renovating our new house, our new tiny house in Florida. I have my own case from Allegan County still going on. In fact, we're set for a trial June 15th, 2022 in Allegan County. If it's still going on and you guys have the means, I'd love to have you head down and join me and support me in person, because it's scary and in more ways than one. But I homeschool. I'm doing the Restore Freedom Weekly episodes. I've got a lot on my plate, and I really didn't sleep for the first 2 years of COVID. A lot of nights I literally didn't sleep at all. So part of me is like, I just don't know if I could take something else on. But quite frankly, if no one out there is going to fight this fight, or let's say the legislature gets involved. Now, I didn't read their brief this time around. I didn't have a chance to do that yet, but their brief that was filed in the Michigan Supreme Court, that is. But what they filed in 2020, their whole argument was, well, the executive branch can't issue these kinds of restrictions upon the people because the legislature is the one that gets to control the people's every move. Well, obviously, I had a different take on that. So, anyway, I have a Google survey. I've got it posted on all my social media platforms and everything, and just basically asking people, first, let me know if you're a registered Michigan voter, because I'd like to know, which people are voting in which way. But I have a lot of people that listen, outside of Michigan and outside of the U.S., but I want to know what we should do. There's also issues, the Michigan governor, I just found out yesterday, is bringing up filing new cases, trying to push the issue of women's reproductive rights and claiming that there's violations of women's rights by, restrictions on abortion in Michigan. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, am I being called to write amicus briefs on that? So at any rate, there's a lot going on, and man, it'd be good to hear from people in my home area.
Yes. First of all, I just want to encourage you, Katherine. I get it. I am so honored to even have an opportunity to know you because of all you are doing for the citizens of our fine state. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, because it is it's tiring. And this is not the time for people to step back and go, I'll let Katherine do it. I'll let somebody else do it. Are you kidding me? My friends, no. You've got to step up now. The number is 482-1330, 482-1331. I do want you to call. Katherine, we are going to have to take a short break. I'm gonna shorten the break. I had something, Whitmer announcing back in 2020, March 23rd. Okay, we are we're going on 3 years now. I don't know, anybody else tired? Yeah, and everything that you have covered this morning, the MCL 333.2253, MDHHS, how the businesses, I mean, what a great summary, the businesses that were told were not essential, really. Churches have shut down, businesses have shut down. People can't afford to lose that kind of business, and so I'm like your biggest cheerleader. So, but check this out, Governor Whitmer. Then we're going to take a short break. We are coming back. I encourage you to call. We only have until 9 o'clock, so keep that in mind. Let's help Katherine as we help ourselves. The next door neighbor isn't doing it. You've got to do it. Let's help.
That we have to fight it at the moment and to support our healthcare system to respond is to give them the opportunity by buying some time. And let me tell you why that's so important.
I'm constitutional attorney Katherine Henry. Civil disobedience is when you are violating a law that you believe to be not appropriate. I'm asking people to follow the laws that are in place, to follow the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, to disobey the unconstitutional dictates of our governor and our MDHHS director. So
You're listening to Freedom Fridays, where we have the freedom to speak freely. Call 482-1330, 482-1331. Our guest today, constitutional attorney Katherine Henry. We'll be back in a moment.
We can and must do to protect ourselves. We will all have to make significant sacrifices.
people are ignoring their constitutional obligation, and we need to step up, hold our individual office holders accountable. Your city clerk, your county clerks, your county commissioners, your city council members, your school board representatives, your principals, your public school teachers. Any government employee has the duty to uphold the Constitution. Every single government officer has the duty to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions. I don't care how small of an office it may seem. I don't care how big it is. There's no exceptions. Every one of them has a duty to uphold the state and federal constitutions. So we need, as a people, to hold them accountable and remind them of that. No more excuses. Our state reps have been nothing but excuses from day one on.
You're listening to Freedom Fridays, where we have the freedom to speak freely. Our guest today, constitutional attorney Katherine Henry, who has taken time out of her day at this early morning to join us and discuss MCL 333.2253. I invite you to join her. Go to restorefreedomkh.com. restorefreedomkh.com. Katherine Henry, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Time now is 8:35. By the way, please call 482-1330, 482-1331 if you have a question or a statement. This is a big deal, and you need to act now. There are more and more people are getting involved, but sometimes it does feel like you're swimming upstream, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Before we get too far, I wanted to tell people that if you're interested to know about the cases that were involved and the ones that are still going on, there's three. It was the legislature's case against the governor. Then there was the Midwest Health versus the governor case. That's the one that actually issued the main decision on October 2nd, 2020. And the current case is Iron Pig versus MDHHS. If you want to see any of those case documents, even though they're supposedly public record, the court doesn't make it very easy. I have compiled many of the most important documents for people to see. It's not everything, because people would get, gloss over and get super frustrated and bored and overwhelmed all at the same time. But I did compile some of the main documents for people to look at, and they're going to be put on my website, but we're having some website issues right now. But if you go to any of the videos or posts about the videos that I've done this week, especially the main episode on Tuesday, there is a link to the, it'll tell you, there's links to different things in there, but there's a link that is to the actual, it opens up a PDF that gives you clickable links to many of the different documents involved in those three cases so that you can see them for yourselves. I want to make all of our government more reachable to people. So even things like court cases and briefs and court orders and court opinions and things that a lot of people just find very, overwhelming to try to understand, it's not that overwhelming. And so anyway, hopefully that PDF I made with those links will help people be able to walk through what's happening and understand it more and realize how important this is.
It is so important. And your website, by the way, is beautifully done. It's easy to follow. It's easy to read, and cosmetically, it's just pretty. So, and also just to have a place to go, because as people are learning more and more, we don't want people to become overwhelmed. And I've always thought, Katherine, do what you can where you are, and we the people need to do what we can where we are. And also, Katherine, the money trail. I ask questions, and my question has always been, okay, who's getting paid? Where's the money coming from? Hang on, we're getting a call, and we will take it on air. Hi, good morning. You are on Freedom Fridays. Go ahead, please.
Question, it's not on this topic, but isn't there only two ways to vote in the state of Michigan? One is in person, and one is by absentee ballot. If so, why can people harvest? Why can people go to people's homes and harvest? Or they have these drop boxes. How can that be legal? And is it legal?
I thank you for your question. Thank you so much. Anything else, ma'am?
That's all.
Okay, thanks so much. All right. And Katherine, that is a topic almost for a whole nother show. It is,
yeah, and I don't have all the answers off the top of my head right now, but I want to say that fairly recently we had some constitutional amendments as well as some statute changes that actually opened things up and made it so that you can have different, those different ways of voting. And so a lot of the Republican, or at least some of the Republican candidates for Attorney General and Secretary of State and some others are actually campaigning on being able to tighten down those, loose ends, if you will, that make it so that people are harvesting votes or making the system not work the way it's supposed to. So I know that, for example, my good friend Christina Caramel is, which I think I just totally slaughtered her last name, Caramo, I believe is actually how you say it, but she's running for state Secretary of State, and my friend Ryan Berman is running for AG, and my friend Ryan Kelly is running for governor, and the three of them are phenomenal people. Not that any of the other candidates running for that Republican position would not do a good job, but I know that those three honestly would do the best job. I've seen them and what they've been working for the last, going 2 or 3 years now, and I've seen what some of their, other candidates have been doing, and although they're good things, I'm telling you, those three are fighting against some of these very issues so that those kinds of things don't happen.
And thank you, Katherine. And Katherine, at some point, now when this first started back in March of 2020, I remember literally almost freezing on the couch going, okay, and now it begins, because there are so many things that have been happening simultaneously and so many things that affect people in different ways. The voting, the forced mandates, the lockdowns, the businesses, people not wanting to work, people getting paid to work or getting paid not to work via unemployment, the cases with the Iron Pig Smokehouse in Gaylord, Cafe Rosetta in Calumet, huge target right in the beginning. I mean, one after another after another. And to me, at some point, it's like, hey, people, this affects everybody, no matter what your personal opinions are or what your personal beliefs are. What is happening is happening. And now is the time to get involved. And Katherine is working 24/7 helping us so we can help each other and help ourselves. It's a very strange time. And I thank you, ma'am, for calling. We have 8:42 as the time, so call now. If you call at 9, I'm sorry, because we're already off to a different program, so now is the time to call. Katherine, I started to say the money trail. I've always been a question asked. I ask questions, and my first thought was, okay, who's getting paid? Who is getting paid to push this? Where is the money going? Good morning. You are on Freedom Fridays. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Katherine, for everything that you do for us. The lawyers in Michigan, they need to step up and come alongside of you and help you out in these situations with these court cases. Thank you for your hard work on the Rumble videos. They are very educational. And to your husband, Mike, and your daughter, and what they do to help you in those videos. As I was meditating and thinking about two specific words this morning, and one was hero, and one is truth. Hero is courage, valor, bravery, and bold. Truth is honesty, conformity to the fact or reality. True statements, undisputable facts. And now heroes come in many shapes and sizes, and they are not the people that you see in the movies. The people that were involved with the Operation Gridlock, bringing attention to the outright violations, what was going on in Lansing with their representatives and governors, and disregarding the laws that are already in place, and standing in front of the Michigan Supreme Court for all of us in October, Katherine. We thank you for your hard work that was involved in that. Our local heroes that people don't realize that are right here in our own community, the neighbors who stand up for the unborn, the neighbors who stand up for the people in the ERs regarding advocacy, the neighbors who simply pray for the people who are being denied access to loved ones in the nursing homes and assisted living centers, even the heroes who live in the nursing homes, who stand up for the other residents who've been abused. And of course, it does happen, and people don't realize this. The very special people who put their faith in Jesus only and go forward with presenting an accurate, truthful information to all of us in the public that our 70 to 80% big pharma-owned media will not present to us. We have so many special people in our community, Katherine. I've met them. They work hard. For the many bad situations that have transpired over 2 years against all of us, Jesus has brought dependable, loving, kind people into my life to encourage me. For that, I am very grateful, Katherine. We have many things to be thankful for each day, and we are grateful for you and everything you do for us. Have a great day, Katherine. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. 8:45 is the time. So in these remaining minutes, and thank you again, ladies, for calling, and we do appreciate it. So back to 333.2253. What can we, the people, do regarding this?
Well,
how can we help? I mean, I want everybody to go to restorefreedomkh.com and just become a part of what Katherine is doing. What else can we do, Katherine?
Yeah, I would really encourage people to watch or listen, at least listen to this week's full episode. It is one of my longer ones, but it's just jam-packed with information to get people up to speed on the details and know what's going on and have that information at hand. Definitely take a look at that link I referenced earlier that gives you access to those court documents. At the very least, look at the table of contents of those long briefs that are filed by the governor or the legislature or me or any of these other parties that I've included in on that. Look at just the table of contents of those arguments and see what's going on. Something might catch your attention. Nothing in government is meant to be or should ever be out of the reach of the average person, the average, everyday, regular Joe who has not gone to law school, who doesn't know how, any of that stuff works. None of this is supposed to be out of the reach for that individual. It's all supposed to be, whether we're talking about how things are happening in the legislature or things that are being done by the executive branch or what's happening in court cases, it's all supposed to be something that we, the people, have our hands on and can understand. So definitely take a look at those documents. I have a Constitution segment recap video that I did yesterday. Definitely, take a look at that afterwards to have those concepts, emphasized. Of course, this week we had our Wednesday's Way to Get Involved challenge, and I'm challenging people to contact the state health department and have your voice be heard. Find them on social media. Find them by email or phone or fax or handwritten letter. Go in person if you can. Tell them what you think of their continued, number one, waste of our tax dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars of, court, costs and attorney's fees and all the rest, but how they are pursuing this issue that has, in fact, been decided. And, in fact, it doesn't matter if a court never touches it. If it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional from day one. I mean, Marbury versus Madison doesn't say you have to keep following unconstitutional edicts of your governor or your MDHHS or even your legislature until a court tells you you don't have to. No, it says an unconstitutional law is void. It has no effect at all. So, we need to understand that, and we need to make sure MDHHS understands that. Could you imagine the impact if thousands of people, even quite frankly, if hundreds of people start calling and texting and emailing that office and letting them know where you stand? It's something so easy that you can do, and it will have an impact. Certainly, I'd ask that you guys look at my social media and find that survey that I shared this week and let me know. I quite frankly don't have very many responses, and if the people of Michigan don't find it that important, then I'll take it as a sign that I need to be putting my energies elsewhere. So if you think I should be participating in this case in the Court of Appeals, and as it probably will go up to the Michigan Supreme Court, to fight these kinds of orders to make sure that it is declared that no matter what the statute, they are unconstitutional, let me know. Fill out that survey. It'll literally take you all of 30 seconds to do so, and I want to know. If you don't think I should, then answer that too. I mean, let me know what you think. Those are some huge ways to get involved. And, of course, you mentioned the money. Where's the money going? I can tell you it's not going to me. So
oh, gosh, no. Oh, I know that. Oh, no.
If people want to help, I need help with a lot of things. We have our Constitution app. I had the app guy tell me this week, don't forget it's $50 a month to keep, the bare minimum to keep this app going so people can download on their phones the Michigan and U.S. Constitution. Where am I supposed to come up with that? The work I'm doing for you guys is free. So, we have that. We have our website. We started our weekly newsletter again, and that costs, I think it was $40 a month for me to be able to use that service to send out those newsletters to people. We pay whatever, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, to be able to use the StreamYard service so that we could stream our weekly, shows out to the various social media platforms. And, all of that costs money. So we'd love to have people partner with us to be able to continue doing all of this. And certainly if I'm going to be filing anything in the courts, there's fees. There's motion filing fees and other fees. So, there's hundreds of dollars that I would have to pay out of pocket on top of the work.
Right. And just so we're clear, when I said the question, my sources, and you won't find it on mainstream, why has this lasted so long with the mandates, with the injections? Because people are getting paid off. Hospitals, nursing homes, people are making money. And so so that was nothing about anything else. But when you follow that money long enough, then you can go directly to the top. All right, who's at the top of this?
Right.
Yeah. So what you're doing, that is where the money should be going, because it's going to take everything to fight this. And so I want to be sure that I'm clear on what you are asking us to do. One of the things, do we want you to file an amicus brief on behalf of the people, because the circuit court found it unconstitutional and MDHHS is appealing? Am I correct in saying you want to know from us, should you go ahead and do it? Because if you're not, if people aren't interested in Katherine Henry fighting on our behalf, then what? So let Katherine know, yay or nay. And if, go to her Restore Freedom with Katherine with KH, restorefreedomkh.com. I'm memorizing things. Got a lot of things, right? So, and so many questions, so little time. What do you think, Katherine, has been one of the most devastating effects since March 2020 to the people of Michigan?
Oh,
I know that's a loaded question, because so much has gone wrong, and we want to make it right.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think just the fact that so far all of these government officials, I mean, not that government officials didn't get away with things, with violating the Constitution before. They did. I mean, I've been fighting against various things that our government's been doing, for years. But, to see it in just such blatant disregard, I mean, looking at the way that my Allegan County case happened and how, it was bad enough what the sheriff's deputies were doing that day to me and the township clerk, but to see how the case has progressed and even so many things about it, the fact that my trial has been moved without any reason written into an order or anything, nothing. Totally violating court rule and statute and case precedent and administrative orders by the Michigan Supreme Court itself. I mean, my case is on its 6th or 7th trial date. And this is just an example. I mean, this is happening to people all over and people that are not attorneys. But if I am having, seriously, PTSD over what I encountered in that situation and, knowing that my freedom is being trampled, I mean, the reason why I want people to be there in person that day in court with me and witnessing what's happening is because literally I need witnesses to see what they're doing to me. I need people to see if they're going to try to, stop me from being able to present a defense to the jury, or are they going to allow me to be able to read lips? I'm hard of hearing, so I'm using bone conducting headphones right now. So to be able to participate in my own trial, I have a right to participate in my own defense. If the judge is going to require everybody to wear masks, despite my requests, I mean, those kinds of things. Those are the things I'm afraid of.
Yes.
Because we're not following the law, we're not following the Constitution, and we need to be there for each other. So that's probably the biggest thing. Is just that when people look and they see, especially people that have seen the work that I've been doing in the fight I've been fighting since day one, since March of 2020, I've been fighting against this. And if they see what's happening to me, a constitutional attorney, and how my family and myself, we've been personally impacted by this, they're afraid, going, well, wait, well,
yes.
It's going to happen to a constitutional attorney, it's going to happen to me, so how can I speak up? But we need to. And like the caller said, there are heroes in every situation. You don't have to be wearing a cape or be in a movie to be a hero. There's heroes all around us, and we need to not forget that. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter, what you do for a living, or, if you're a kid, if you're 90 years old, if you're working full-time, if you're a single mom. It doesn't matter. Everybody has the opportunity to make a difference. And so I guess, Yeah.
When is your court date, Katherine?
Our next one is, the trial date is burned in my memory, June 15th, which is a Wednesday. But the Friday before is the settlement conference date that they always do, so I just don't remember the date off the top of my head.
All right. I just wanted to be sure I get that down. Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to get that in real quick. Trial date, June 15th, in Allegan County Courthouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Allegan County
All
Courthouse.
right. And Katherine, you're making so many good points. Doesn't matter what age, you just said. Doesn't matter what age you are. Stand up. Stand up now. Stand up and speak. Stand up and fight for your rights. I liked earlier when you were talking about, the freedoms that we have lost to peacefully assemble. The continuation of the public health services. Contact the state health department. You have suggested as a way. Go to restorefreedomkh.com. So many things people can do. And so we implore, do what you can. And, there are a lot of health workers up here. There's plenty of health workers around the country. But the N95 masks, I hear a lot of things on the street. And I'm like, please call. Please call. It's going to get to a point where you're not going to be able to have the chance to speak. Your chance to speak is during programs like this. Your chance to speak is as things are happening, not after the fact when you're like, oh, I should have done something. Yeah, you should have. Yeah, you should have.
And you mentioned, different ways. You've alluded to all these things, but these are just some of the things I talked about in this week's episode. That these EOs, they violated the Constitution by impairing our right to follow through on contracts. They have violated our right to equal protection of the law. They've impaired our right to assembly, consultation, instruction, petitioning the government, freedom of worship, freedom against unreasonable searches and seizures, for protection of our unenumerated rights, and the fact that the power is inherent in the people. These orders have obviously violated the separation of powers and violated all kinds of procedural due process aspects, but we have significant deprivation of our property and our liberty, facing possible jail time. These are serious things. We can't ignore them anymore.
No. It's been over 2 years now. These cannot be ignored anymore. I am happy to be seeing more and more people who are waking up to what's happening. So I am encouraged, but you won't see any of that on mainstream. I haven't. I just haven't. So that's when people need to investigate and research further, look to other sources. We've got about 1 minute left, Katherine. In closing, what would you like to leave us with?
Just that the fight is always going to be going on. There's no Staples easy button here, but that's not a reason to lose hope. As the caller also pointed out, we need to rely on what Jesus has done for us. There's always hope in that. And we need to stick together. And no matter where you are, whether you're way up in the far stretches of the UP, like you guys are, where I was born, or whether you're, in Metro Detroit, there's always something to do, and there's always a way to encourage others to fight that freedom fight too. And there's endless resources available to you for free on restorefreedomkh.com. So I hope you guys do take advantage of all of those.
Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to having you on again. And just know we're with you. If not there, because you're there in spirit.
Sounds great.
All right, Katherine. You have a great weekend. It is the weekend.
Yes, woo!
Yahoo! Enjoy the warmth. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk to you again. Katherine Henry, Hancock native constitutional attorney, and doing what she can to help us help each other. Go to restorefreedomkh.com. restorefreedomkh.com. And big thanks to Katherine Henry. And big thanks to you for joining us today. Thanks to our callers. Thanks to our listeners. You're listening to Freedom Fridays, where we have the freedom to speak freely.
Thank you.